Hey guys, welcome to Finally Clicked, the podcast where we discuss business, leadership, and personal development. My name is Margaret Smith, and I'm the Director of Operations for Pickett Street Properties, a real estate team out of Bothell, Washington. And I'll be here every week with our owner and team leader, Jesse D. Moore. We'll be digging into concepts and ideas that have helped us both personally and professionally, and you'll also get a chance to hear from local and national experts that we know provide massive value to get to the point where it all finally clicks. Hey guys, welcome to Finally Clicked with Margaret Smith and Jesse Moore. It's a special day. Today is Jesse's birthday. And so in honor of his birthday, this episode is going to be all about him and Rainmakers.
Well, not about
Making
me.
It rain.
Just Rainmakers.
Rainmakers.
Yeah, we had a good conversation yesterday. Mm-hmm. And because of the New Year holiday, which kind of screwed up our week, right? Tuesday was a holiday.
That's weird.
We had 2 listings to put on today.
It's a busy week.
It's my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a podcast that we have to record and launch by Friday. So there wasn't a lot wasn't a lot of time. And so you had kind of given me an out. Like, oh, well, we don't have to do it. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you giving me an out? Like, I don't need an out. I know this has to be done. I need your help to figure out when we're going to do it. And it stimulated a conversation that then got me thinking about Rainmakers and why we do the things we do. Mm-hmm. And so what did I say I wanted this to be about?
The realities of a Rainmaker.
Realities, yes.
And I love it because I think a lot of our listeners so far have been admin, and this might pick up a different crowd, but it's going to benefit the admin as well, because it's like, let's take a peek behind the curtain in your mind, and because you know so many Rainmakers, business owners, team leaders, you know how they think, and you have spent more time with them. I think you'll be able to help both sides. So I think this is going to be a really cool conversation for people to listen to, because again, this is another, I know I've heard from many people who have said it's been really cool to hear us talk, because we don't have these conversations typically in front of other people, let alone hundreds of people that listen. And so I think this is going to be helpful for both the executive and their admin.
Yeah, and admin, cool your jets. We'll do you too.
We'll do you.
You know,
we've done them plenty the last couple.
Well,
episodes.
And no, I mean it. I do want to take a look at admin.
Oh, like the reality of
realities of admin and what's probably not going to change. And so,
of course,
the conversation today, what I want it to be is if you're an admin and you've been banging your head against the wall because your Rainmaker does something that
you don't understand,
or don't like or whatever, there's certain realities that aren't going to change. Mm-hmm. And the sooner you accept that, the better. Mm-hmm. And fighting against your Rainmaker at every hill and turn
won't do anything.
Doesn't help anyone. And so if you can hear it from us, what we've learned in 6 years working together, what is unrelenting about me and what's not going to change and what Margaret had to embrace in order for us to move forward. Mm-hmm. So I'll start with, there is a method to my madness.
And today we don't really have like numbered points, right?
No.
We're just going to go through it. Haphazard. I think it's the best.
I learned.
And we're drinking whiskey, which people have told me they really like.
Right.
Yeah.
And so maybe we're not drinking whiskey and we're just telling them to make them think that we're drinking whiskey.
Good point.
Because otherwise we might appear like we're lushes.
That's so true.
Not in control of our vices. So I wanted to do some more research on this, because I'm great at reading books and marking my books up, but I'm not great at like putting the notes together, you know, and having like a anthology of some of the best things from books. Yeah. Because every once in a while I read something that I think is like, oh, this is it. Yeah. I know I want to carry this with me. And I want to say it was from The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And he just talked for a moment about kind of embrace, like, don't be afraid to acknowledge the genius in certain people.
Sure.
Like certain levels of certain people that have genius in them are going to be unrelenting.
Absolutely.
About their method.
Yes.
So like an artist.
Yep. Picasso.
They're very unrelenting.
Yep.
And they don't take shit from anybody on very specific things because they know that that's how it works for them. And if you work for somebody and they have carved out a niche in their space that is unique and is their own lane, be really careful about trying to get them to change that.
Yep.
Because, I think that should be honored. I think if somebody has carved out a niche and they've found a space to make their own and they've built something out of something. I mean, there's 14,000 real estate agents in the Puget Sound that we're competing with. No one has, I don't know a single agent that has 1% market share in the Puget Sound.
No.
That's how fragmented our market is. And so if you can, carve something out of this mess, that's noteworthy. And if you have success in that, then write it. Write it.
Oh, yeah.
Don't, any sort of tweaking or messing with it really could screw it up. And I think one of the things, this is a double-edged sword because I don't want to be like, this is my method and stomp my feet.
Sure.
And be like, this is the way it's going to be. I still have to have the intelligence to explain it to you or to other people. Yeah. And it doesn't give me the right to be an asshole and say, well, this is my method, so bounce. But the reality is that if I deviate too much from what I know intrinsically, instinctually, and intuitionally, if I vary too much from that, I lose my power.
Sure. Well, then hopefully all these rainmakers and business owners out there work with people who are smart enough to understand that. I think it took me just more, again, getting to know you, to know exactly what that niche was. I mean, I knew what the niche was, I guess, when we did a lot of business. And I still know what your specialty is. I guess I know what you're really good at. So it'd be stupid of me to stop you from doing something that works. It's like, let's take that niche and let's see how we can make it bigger. Let's explode it. Let's take that talent and see what we can do to double it. So maybe if you're not working with someone who gets that there could be a problem there.
Well, another way I see this kind of manifested out is the Rainmaker is out a lot on appointments.
Oh, sure.
Meetings, whatever, lunches, happy hours, coffees. And there is a time where the admin start to get, I wouldn't say jealous, but they start to covet the Rainmaker. They want him or her to be more present, more available to them. And as an admin, I think you have to understand that them being out in the field is
best use of their time.
The best use that's them being successful. And if they're able to leave the office and the business is able to run and they're able to focus on what they want to do, that's a successful environment. Them being in the office all the time probably isn't the optimum.
No, yeah. I mean, my only objection to that is I think a lot of times Rainmakers don't know when the business is ready to be left. And so if they're gone a lot, and again, this comes like I'm coming at it from both sides. Like I also know, and I've seen admin that are smart enough to know when to push back and let it go, and others that don't quite know the business well enough to be able to really have an opinion. Some of them I think are speaking too early, too fast, admin, and I don't think they should even say anything because they're still learning the business. Whereas there's some admin that have been around for a long time and understand that if the owner leaves, the Rainmaker leaves, that person might be the only person that can actually bring in business, or maybe they need that leadership around to lead. I understand totally what you're saying because you literally can sit down and make it rain. Not just in your chair in front of the computer, but when you go to a happy hour, when you go to functions where you get to meet people that are networking and wanting to do business with you. And we talk about like merging and acquisitions with our coach a lot. That's what you do best. That's where you're like, that is magic. Totally. So I completely agree.
All right. Another reality. And I know this from networking with top Rainmakers from inside of Keller Williams for years. And that is we are in our head all of the time.
Yeah.
And that's something that I knew about myself, but I didn't know it applied to other Rainmakers. I thought it was unique to myself. And the reality is as when I went to the Gary Keller masterminds and I started to network with top level Rainmakers, we all had the same syndrome. And that is an inability to turn our brain off and relax and just kind of settle in. Like, if we're awake, our brain is turning. We're trying to find some way to fix a problem or create more business, or
your brain's just going.
Whatever the case may be. And so, and I understand that this may be true of admin as well, but probably less so.
Yeah.
I mean, I get upset when...
My brain's like that, but I don't think many people function like me. I'm a weird one.
Right. And that's why I wanted to offer that and say, because I do know that you're that way, but you're still better at turning your brain off than I am.
I absolutely am.
Like when you leave the office, and part of that's the boundaries that you're able to set. So I will say this, I think admin are more able to set boundaries that free them up from this problem. Mm-hmm. Whereas Rainmakers, we don't have those boundaries in place because we started this, we're the entrepreneur, and we poured our blood, sweat, and tears and time into it. Yeah. And so we have to be available on nights and weekends sometimes, and you know what I mean? So,
and it might be because we've programmed, I've never not had a salaried position. So I know, last night I was on Facebook making the Facebook page for Finally Clicked, and I stopped at about 9:50. And I feel fine about it because I know what this means to me and to you and what it's going to bring for us, what it is bringing. But other people wouldn't do that. And so maybe it's because we've kind of, like for me to be completely commissioned would be a really weird feeling. I don't even know if I'd be able to stop because I'd be so freaked out.
Right. Well, and quite honestly.
So maybe that's kind of how you feel, I guess.
I was thinking about this last night, and... in 2008, I did 3 transactions. Mm-hmm. I thought it was 4 for the longest time. And then when I started teaching a class about how to build a team, I went back and looked, and it was 3. And
that's crazy.
And at the time, we had just had David, our second child, and I had told his mom at the time that she could quit her high-paying job at Boeing with benefits, and she could be a stay-at-home mom for 12 months. We'd give it a try. Well, we did. My son was born at the end of 2008, and I had closed 3 transactions, and I couldn't go back on my word. Like, I still had to make this happen. Yeah. So I honestly don't remember much of my son's first 18 months alive. Yeah. Because I was working nonstop. Yeah. I was working until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, yeah, I think when I first started, even that was 2012. There were times when you were up till 1 o'clock working on a listing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so having your back to the wall and making it work, man, you have to strip away all the boundaries and be like, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this happen. Mm-hmm. And then when you become successful, you don't take your foot off the gas. Yeah. Like, you're like, hey, this is working. Then I'm going to keep this pace up. I'm going to keep this consistency up. Mm-hmm. And so eventually, hopefully, we don't get burned out. Mm-hmm. It's probably going to happen. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, we don't get sick. It's probably going to happen. There's lots of things that can happen. But one thing that doesn't seem to change is that how much time we spend in our head. And so I would hope admin have grace for their Rainmakers, that anytime you've gone to them, like even after a weekend, they may have spent time with their family or their friends and done some things, but they also spent most of that time in their head, thinking about the business, thinking of ways to make it better, thinking of problems that they're trying to solve.
Well, that's where I think empathy comes in too. And I know I've spoken to admin who say they have no empathy. And that's a very different kind of director of operations, a very different kind of executive assistant or admin who has no empathy. Because I think I've pulled on my empathy daily. And you need to. Not just for you, but for the whole, when you're caring for people. Because again, I think Gary Vaynerchuk mentioned this recently in a post that he did. It might have been someone else, but Simon Sinek. The new reality... Are
we just saying names?
Yeah, Simon Sinek. The new reality of business
Steve
is
Larkin.
that we are a family. And we've talked about that before. And it's not just how Pickett Street thinks or should think. It's how everybody should think, because we spend so much time together. Everybody who's in business together, you have to care about humans, and that takes empathy. And so I think for admin that lack empathy, I think it'd be really hard for them to work with a Rainmaker.
I think empathy is a very tried and true indicator of success in that position.
I would agree with that.
If you have no empathy, you're not going to be there long. Mm-hmm. I promise you. Mm-hmm. It's a tagline of mine. I say it all the time. I let people know I need grace. Mm-hmm. I need lots of it. Mm-hmm. And I know that about myself. Mm-hmm. I know I need people around me that are going to give me the benefit of the doubt, and they're going to be able to forgive me from time to time because I know myself. Mm-hmm. And I would never hire somebody or put someone working directly with me who didn't give me grace because it'd be short-lived.
Yeah.
I will eat them for lunch. And I can be apologetic and all of those things, but it doesn't change the reality of working with me. Mm-hmm. And I need grace.
Yeah.
So, next reality. We pay for everything. Mm-hmm. And I wrote this down, and I know not everybody acts the way that I do, but it is my birthday, and it was nice. Margaret paid for my lunch today, and that's the first time you've paid for my lunch in how long?
Oh, a long, long time. Yeah, there's other times when I try to pay and you don't let me, ever. And
so that's not, and I'm not saying that to express how little you pay for my lunch.
No, but it's a kindness that not many owners do. And you always, if we're at lunch together, for sure we're at some point talking about the business. Something about the business is coming up. So, and it's also just a way that you treat me, for sure, too.
Well, and I just think I want to put some misconceptions away, and that is, just because we're a Rainmaker doesn't mean we're rich. Just because we're a Rainmaker doesn't mean we have lots of money.
You also have the most expenses.
We have the most. Our budget, until we just cut our budget significantly for a lot of different reasons, mostly preparing for the shift, right? And we cut it a lot. Before we cut it, our budget was $65,000 a month. $65,000 a month.
Yep.
If we only make $60,000 a month, I lost $5,000. And so on, right? And so having having a nut that is that big is overwhelming. It's anxiety creating. It is sleep depriving. If things don't go well, it affects me. And so the reason I say this is, in the post-holiday season and it being my birthday, if you want to really bless a Rainmaker, do you know that at most happy hours they go to, at most lunches they go to, they are paying the check.
Yeah.
And they're not just paying for their lunch, they're paying for other people's lunches. And so if you really want to bless a Rainmaker, take them out to lunch and pay the bill. Or take them out for a drink and pay the bill. And just make it about them and honor them in that small way. And I promise you it'll make an impact.
Well, and I think, too, oftentimes, oh gosh, there's so much you could say on this topic. I don't even know where to begin.
Well, one of the things we talk about, and it's been an issue in the past between the sales agents and the administrative staff, salaried, is the fact that salaried, and we talk about this often, Rainmakers are entrepreneurs. They white-knuckle their commission dollars. It's hard for them to get them to a place where they'll hire an administrator because they're guaranteeing someone a salary when they themselves don't have a guaranteed salary. And that is hard to overcome. It just is. Now, hopefully you overcome it, because there's no other way to grow your business than hiring people. And so you have to overcome it. It is hard to overcome, but hopefully you overcome it. That said, if I have 3 bad months, a salary job doesn't sound so bad, right?
Yeah.
On the flip side, when things are good, I'm making annual salaries in a month, and that feels great. But it's not like that's fluff for me. No. I might be digging myself out of a hole from having 3 bad months, who knows what.
So why are you a business owner then?
Oh, geez, I ask myself that often. Mostly,
I think you just laid out the pros and cons to being on commission. Like when it's good, it's really good, and you, like the people that choose to be an agent, be an owner, be a business owner, you must see enough of the good and the freedom to want that. I mean, you definitely, like, you have too much going on in your mind, and you need that kind of a challenge as a business owner. Like, you're constantly trying to overcome issues or problems or concerns or, like, trying to see the future. I can't see you in a salaried role ever.
Well, and what's the main reason for that? Why couldn't you see me in a salaried role? Well, ceiling's part of it. But the main thing is, we talked about this yesterday. Am I going to respond well to someone telling me what to do?
Well, never. No, which is why I don't tell you what to do ever. This is where that whole conversation started.
And so to let people behind the veil, yesterday, in talking about the podcast, and when we were going to do it, you gave me an out. And I said, why are you doing that? Like, this is important. If it's important, then you can't open up doors for me to get out of this. You should be closing those doors and nailing them shut. And you said, I'm not going to tell you what to do, because it never works. And I understand what you're saying, and it's true, but I did give you the freedom to push me. And I said, I know in the past, I may not have been in a place to be pushed, or I didn't have the countenance to be pushed, but I gave you permission yesterday to push me in certain areas. And this is one, we don't want this is a standard now for us. We're going to record a podcast a week. That's not going to deviate in my mind. Consistency is key in sales and in business and in podcasting. And I have to make this a priority. And if I don't make it a priority, it won't be a priority. And if it's not a priority, it won't get done. And if it won't get done, then nothing happens. And what do I have to show for it? So, bugger all that.
Yeah, that was a great conversation yesterday. I wish we could record stuff like that sometimes too, just as an example. I mean, us talking through it is just as good, basically. But, I was really frank and open, saying, like, I don't try to even imagine that I can tell you what to do. And not that I don't say, like, hey, Jesse, this is what I think would be great to add to the business, or this is what I say that kind of stuff all the time. But I realized a long time ago, like, I think when we talked in a previous episode about what I wanted to stop doing, one of those things I stopped doing was being a helicopter parent around the other agents, but also around you. It doesn't work, and it made me a crazy person, and I'm so much more relaxed. But it doesn't mean, though, I understood what you said yesterday, and it was that you want higher standards for yourself, and you want friends and people around you that are going to help you in that. I want the same thing, and I would be happy to do that. So it was a great conversation.
Yeah, I had another thought there. I was starting to think about, flush out. I'm not sure if it's going to come back to me. Okay. I was thinking about Sarah and about you and about, all of that. Like, Sarah might email me. Okay, there's something that I decided last night, right? We have a loyalty club program that's ending, and we have one last gift to send out. And it was supposed to go out in December. Yeah. So Sarah emails me ideas probably the last week in November. And then I'm sure she comes to you and says, Jesse hasn't responded. What do I do?
We talk about it after 1-1, yeah.
And then you send me an email with ideas, and I don't respond because I don't like those ideas. And so then finally last night, so January 2nd, I had a great idea for the loyalty club. And I said, here you go, do this. And that's got to be frustrating for you guys because it's not timely. It slows down the process. And yet, when we deviate from that, it hasn't gone well. And let me be clear about this. We've found that if I choose the gifts, it's just a better result versus if you try to circumvent my process and try to help me out by doing it for me, we don't get as good of a result. And so I care more about the result than how long it takes to get there. That's what I figured out, but I haven't communicated that to you guys. So you guys are beating your heads against the wall. Sarah more so than you.
I've just let it go.
So how did you figure that out?
To let it go?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, when you beat your head against a wall so much that it gets bloody, you pretty much figure it out. And the world's not going to end. We can't scale the business that way, in my perspective. If we had thousands of those that we had to send out, we couldn't delay like that. Right. But with the size business that we have, it's okay.
Well, it's not even that, in my opinion, because it's the last one.
Sure. And all of that stuff put together.
What's the repercussions?
Well, that's what Sarah and I talked about it about 411 like 2 weeks ago. I said, hey, this is the last one. How many of these people even know this gift's coming? It's only 9 people. So yeah, I try to coach her and myself on stuff like that. And I always think perspective. Get perspective, Margaret. This is the last gift. Nobody even probably knows it's coming. And that's how I help prioritize. So
I know I feel bad. It makes me feel bad because I know I'm holding everybody up.
Well, it's part of the reason we're kind of stopping this program too, right? Like we can't have stuff like that relies so much on you. It's a lot on you. Yeah. Because on top of that, you're also writing the letter for our annual letter to go out to all of our clients. Like there's a lot of things that we have to try to systematize so that it doesn't depend on you. You can step in and do stuff when you want to, but I don't want you to feel obligated to.
And one of the methods that you and I have for knowing where I'm at in a process like that is that it works really well for you guys to send me an email. If I've answered it, it will be read. And if I haven't answered it or I haven't addressed it, it'll be unread in my email. Mm-hmm. So at any given time, you can see that an email you sent me 30 days ago is still unread.
Oh, yeah, there's still something
and it's still there. It's at the top of my queue. Yeah. And I just haven't
that means you're
made it a priority.
Yeah.
I haven't figured out.
Or also, I'll unread stuff and then just add it to my 411 to talk to you about in person, which is sometimes better. Because sometimes you just need another person to bounce ideas off of or just talk to.
Because I hate unread email, too.
Mm-hmm. Me
so
too.
It's a way of making me look at it, address it. Mm-hmm. All right. That was all about we pay for everything. Is that the one that one was?
I think that came off of that. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Another truth, we second guess ourselves all the time.
Yeah. You do a lot. I had no idea.
I mean, it's easy when you start.
Yeah.
Because you just have one client and you just kill it for that client. Mm-hmm. And then you come to a point where you're closing 30 deals a month and you have way less time to make those decisions on a transactional basis.
Yeah.
And you have less time to work in the business. Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, the stakes seem higher and the time allotted to make a good decision seems less.
Yeah.
And so we're decisive people. I think it'd be hard to be a Rainmaker if you weren't decisive.
Absolutely.
I'm a decisive person.
Yeah. You have to be.
I just second guess myself all the time. And I don't tell people about it. I don't talk about it. I don't even really talk about it with you. In the last few years, I've been brutally honest and transparent with you as I try to figure out some of my own failings and quirks and foibles.
Well, and I love the transparency in that because I've never, before this job, I worked with a lot of different leaders in different industries, and I didn't get to see the process that they went through to get to their final answer. So now that I've been behind closed doors with you and other people and other leaders, I understand that it's even Iris, when we talked to Iris Scott in one of the episodes, she talked about how she doubts herself every day. And I think it's a natural human tendency. But the deal is, though, what I love about it and what it's taught me personally is to make a decision and just do something. And I wish I would have learned that when I was a teenager, because if I had, I would have tried a lot more things and figured out what I liked and didn't like a lot sooner. And that's something that Gary Keller said the first time you took me to see him for a class down in Austin. And he said that's what he talks to kids about in Quantum Leap, that class that he teaches. And I think it's the best thing ever, because if we could sit in indecision forever, nothing would ever happen. And at least we fail or something happens, like we figure out what to do and we can fix it. But the decision gets made. And honestly, I would say like 85, 90% of the time, you make the right decision.
Well, and honestly, the whole premise of failing forward, which everybody heralds is such a great thing, which I understand it is. But the whole premise of fail forward is basically making a decision that didn't work, right?
Yep.
And so it's still important.
The
whole premise of that is you have to be decisive.
Yeah.
And you can't sit there humphering around.
Yeah.
Waiting for
I've realized now
the stars and the moon to
I have
align.
way less patience for those people. I mean, I'm not even. Can you see? I didn't even put myself in that group. I have lost my patience for that because I'm realizing how much time in life I've lost doing that. And I can't handle it anymore. It's a waste of time. I mean, make a good decision. Do some research if you have to do. If it's a business decision, obviously we're not going to just like go expand to another city without thinking about it. But make a decision and do something. I can't even hang out with people that don't do it. Like figure out what you want to eat. Pick something.
Yeah.
Really basic. I can't handle it.
Yeah. And I feel like so many people,
I appreciate that about you.
They try to take credit for failing forward through a lack of decision.
Yeah.
And you're not failing forward.
You're not doing anything.
You're just failing into a puddle. It's not failing forward. You're not throwing yourself forward. You're not trying to create some momentum or anything else.
No.
You're an indecisive puddle.
There. Yeah.
You're a stagnant puddle.
Yeah. Ugh.
All right. It's lonely. It's lonely being a Rainmaker.
Oh, so lonely. Oh my gosh.
No, really, I mean, I could talk about this forever.
You've had some good conversations with other Rainmakers about this. It's an absolute. Yeah. I don't totally understand it though, so explain it.
Well, I think it's lonely because of the time commitment in the beginning, right? Time away from
yourself.
Time away from friends and family and doing the things you want to do to build the business to the point where you can hire people and create leverage in your life. Mm-hmm. Then when you have leverage, you're still the boss. You're still paying for everything. Yeah. It's still all eyes on you. Mm-hmm. At one point, I was responsible for 9 families' income, right? Mm-hmm. Like their entire income. Mm-hmm. And that's a heavy weight to bear. Mm-hmm. And not many people understand what that's like. Mm-hmm. And so until I sought out the counsel of people, of eagles, mm-hmm. Sometimes you just need to talk about it. Yeah. You just need to talk to someone else who knows what it's like to not get a paycheck and support 9 other families. Mm-hmm. That's a really weird dynamic to try to get your head around. It's like, I'm doing this, and sometimes it's great and it's wonderful, and other times this ain't such a great deal. Mm-hmm. And so that can be lonely. I think success can be lonely in that people start to come at you and not always for the right reason. Mm-hmm. They just want to, get some of your pixie dust. Mm-hmm. And they want your time, and they want to know what your secret sauce is and everything else. And so then you start to question relationships about, are they
real?
Yeah. Are they real? Are they doing this for the right reasons?
Yep. Is it manipulation? All that stuff. Totally get that.
And then I know this is true for some of my friends as well, is if they're successful for years at a time, it distances themselves from their high school friends and their college friends. Mm-hmm. That might be their peer network, but now they're the most successful of their friends, and that can be lonely because now it distances you. It creates a divide between you and your childhood friends or school friends, and they start to treat you differently or look at you differently or expect you to pay for things,
jealousy, all sorts of stuff.
And so that's the part that I think can be, all of those things can be lonely. Mm-hmm. And so if you're an admin listening to this, I think Rainmakers, we try to make it seem like we have it all together, and this is how we've chosen this, and this is the way we want it to be, and that's not entirely true. Mm-hmm. And so
I think it's a good perspective for people to hear.
You checking in with me is I love that so much. I don't need it all the time. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this. Mm-hmm. I can't have people in my organization that need me checking in on them all the time. Mm-hmm. I need people to be self-motivated, self-starters. Yeah. And it helps me a lot when you can see that I'm being overwhelmed, or you can see that I'm not firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, and even if you don't have anything you can give me, just asking.
Yeah. For you to check in is a big deal. Mm-hmm.
I have a follow-up question to that I actually written down that came up. Because you mentioned a lot, we've talked about this before, and I remember you talking about this at the beginning when I started, that you have a responsibility, or you feel very responsible like you said, you at one point were feeding 9 families. 9 families were like benefiting from Pickett Street and from everything. I think at that time I said something like, I feel like you take too much weight on your shoulders because ultimately, yes, you're a business owner and you're feeding these families for sure. But ultimately, it's my responsibility to take care of myself. I know that you care about me and what happens to me, what happens to Sarah and everybody. But if something happens and I had to go get another job, I would have to do it, right? Like some of that, I feel like you need to shift off your shoulders in order to be able to really be clear and make decisions without having to feel like you have all these people you have to support. Because ultimately, this is a business. This is not a nonprofit, right? And I was the first person to, coming from a nonprofit, I care a lot about people. But I think I actually, when I switched my thinking a little bit, I was like, hey, this is not a nonprofit. We're running a business. And if we can't afford to have 4 or 5 salaried people on the team, we can't afford it. That's just the gist of it. But I'm just curious where that came from, if that's just something that comes with starting a business and employing your first person, or where did that come from?
Well, when you bring it up like that, it makes me think that it is not growth thinking. Like, if it was growth-minded thinking, then I would be, like, so jacked that I support 9 families. And let's go get 10 and 11 and 12, right?
Yeah.
I saw this tweet exchange between Elon Musk and a follower. And the follower was trying to make some socio-political point about Elon being a billionaire when there's people hungry. And Elon's response was, I employ 150,000 people.
Yeah.
Like, I think that I do my part.
Yeah.
And I didn't come from a long line of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
No one, like, my dad's a rancher.
Anybody else in your family have a business like that?
And ranching, I am not going to lump in with entrepreneurship.
No.
Because it's a very different type of industry and a different lifestyle. I'm not negating what they do, and it's a lot. Mm-hmm. But being an entrepreneur, if you're growth-minded, you accept all of those things and you move forward. And so I will say that I may be being weak-minded in that fear sometimes gets the better of me.
Okay.
And so when we're not making money,
yeah.
I become more conscious of all the families I'm supporting.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas if I wasn't focused on that and I was focused on units or the activities, then maybe that wouldn't come to mind.
That makes sense. I think it makes sense to have fear, for sure, around that.
But I just think it goes back to to Rainmakers being in their head all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I have 1,000 thoughts. And they start off this way, and then I talk myself out of that thinking, right? And then I move forward with the thought I needed.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like a constant birthing, death, fertilization, birthing, death, fertilization. Where I'm trying to kill the bad ideas and just carry through and fertilize the good ones.
Filter the good ones, yeah. Sounds exhausting.
Yeah. It is. And then this one I think is interesting and might be worth its own podcast at some point. Mm-hmm. Many of us are narcissists. It might also be one of the reasons we're successful. Mm-hmm. So I've talked about having to reimagine who I was in my late 30s. Mm-hmm. And part of that involved kind of a deep dive on narcissism for me. Because I realized I was a narcissist, and I didn't like some of the manipulative behavior that came from that. And so I went to therapy, and I really studied narcissism.
What made you aware of it?
I mean...
You don't have to go deep or anything, but I'm just thinking that's that awareness. How did that happen?
I was aware in the moment when I was being manipulative, because I knew that... Because what a narcissist will do... And they create their own reality. And then everything they do is to protect that false reality.
Yeah.
And narcissism and I could be wrong, but I'll just tell you in my studies what I've found is that narcissists are usually born out of an environment where there's a domineering father and an overprotective mother, or an overcompensating mother. And there's kind of this, like, I'm going to pull myself up by the bootstraps. I'm going to make this happen no matter what kind of mentality that comes out of that. And that's why a lot of entrepreneurs are narcissists, because they're kind of doing things despite the odds.
Okay.
They're driven by this right to prove people wrong.
Yeah.
So that part can be good and healthy to some degree.
Yeah.
But it can't stay that way, you know?
No.
If you then become successful and you don't modify your behavior, then you become a very manipulative person that can't be trusted, because you will do whatever you will say what you need to say and do what you need to do to protect the perception of that reality. That is false. Okay, I want to be clear. It's a false reality that you've concocted and you've supported, and you're just trying to keep this house of cards from falling down.
So you recognized that you were doing something.
I realized I was questioned. There came a point in my life where I questioned everything, and in questioning everything, I became more self-aware. And in becoming more self-aware, I realized there was behavior that was manipulative and unhealthy.
That's amazing.
And
that click that you just did, though, that's amazing, because a lot of people don't do that.
And so then I had to understand why I did it. Yeah. So then I really had to deep dive on why. Because here's the thing, I'm a good person in my heart. Like, I know myself and I know my intentions, and it's all good. I just had a tremendous amount of fear, and I had no foundation in myself. I had no idea who I was and what I believed in. And so I imagined what I needed the reality to be, and then I supported that. Okay. And I did everything in support of that. It was very empty and hollow. And I miss being like a major, massive manipulator by a couple years, honestly. I think if I'd had another year or two like that, there was no saving me. I would be...
been just ingrained in you.
Yeah, because I would be very good at it. I would be highly successful at it. Yeah. And if I get results in it, why would I deviate?
True.
And so when I figured this out, I'm like, okay, I want to take some of the emotional stigma out of the word narcissist to try to understand it.
Yeah.
Because I think too many people,
there's a lot of emotion,
out of shame or out of whatever, they decide they're not going to look into something, or they're not going to accept that they are something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I talk to people all the time about it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, listen.
People don't want to admit that they're depressed. People don't want to admit anything, hardly.
Right.
Yeah, totally true.
And so I think I surprise people because I say, yeah, I'm a narcissist.
Yeah,
people
are like, what?
And they're like, what? And they're but I'm a reformed narcissist.
Yes, that's great.
And I don't think...
I agree, though. I love that about you. You will say it. You will just say it, and then you let's unpack that. And it takes away the emotion.
Well, and I can call one. I can see one now from a mile away coming right at us. And that's great. That's healthy awareness, right? When I know someone's coming at us and they don't have a healthy grasp of reality, and they're hanging on by a thread, like I'm going to go way around
with
this
clients
person.
And possible hires and things like that. You've totally done that. Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
So if you work for somebody who's a narcissist, I would just be careful about not putting a stigma on that behavior necessarily. Realize that part of that behavior is highly manipulative, and be careful of that behavior. And then if you want to understand it, start to ask questions and start to ask, if you have the type of relationship where you can kind of ask them about their upbringing and their relationship with their father and their relationship with their mother. I don't want you to become their therapist. No. That's not going to be helpful. I had to go to therapy to figure this out and kind of learn different cognitive behavior. So that...
You learn how to self-soothing stuff.
Well, I had to recognize the cycles where I would introduce manipulative behavior, and then I had to break that cycle when I recognized it and be like, okay, instead of that, I'm going to do this. Yeah. And that's why I'm so radically transparent now. Yeah. It's like, and that's me breaking the cycle. Yeah. Because that's an opportunity for me to be manipulative. And by being manipulative, that sounds like a bad word. That's an emotionally charged word. It might be super subtle. It may not even impact other people. Yeah. But it still deludes me into thinking something that's not true. Yeah. I'm still supporting an environment that is not based in reality. Yeah. And I'm just done living that kind of life. Yeah. I only want to put my feet on bedrock. I only want to put my feet on that what I know is true.
Now, what? I mean, I know truth is attractive, obviously, but it's also not as comfortable. Like, what makes you want to live that so much more when you said if you had stayed in that other realm, you could have been really, really, really good at it and really successful because of that, but maybe that would only last. I think people who live in that area will get success to a certain point, yes, but at some point it all crumbles.
Yeah.
And it will destroy them. I do believe that.
Well, success is like rocket fuel. If you want to see someone who they really are, like give them a decent dose of success. Mm-hmm. And how they respond to that is super interesting. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is I was being transparent even in the height of my narcissism. Because and I'm sure you remember this, I had a huge struggle with being successful.
Oh, yeah.
Like I used 100%. To ask people, do you struggle with being successful? Because it was a huge mind F for me. Mm-hmm. And now when I see it in other people, I can tell them exactly what that is. The reason I was struggling with being successful is that I felt fake.
Yep.
And I couldn't, because I was afraid. I felt like a fraud, and I felt like everyone was going to discover the truth.
So many people feel that way. It's so interesting.
And all of that was based on me not being in touch with who I was, not accepting myself for who I was, not building myself up in the way that I needed to be built up to support who I was. Like everything was a fraud because I wasn't allowed to be who I was at a young age. And so I just kept going through the motions, and I kept doing what I was supposed to do to be a good boy, to be a good son, to be a good man. But I didn't have the tools. I didn't have any of the programming to fall back on. So it was an act for so long. And then when I got tired of acting, and I got tired of, it's like
exhausting.
It's a lie that's been told so many times. You believe it's true, and then you forget what's true and what's not. And then that's just no way to live a life.
No.
And so I was like, you know what? I want peace in my life. And the only way I'm going to have peace is if I figure out what's real. And that means I have to question everything.
Yeah, you just made me think of, I was going to look this up, the guy who wrote the book Emotional Intelligence. I'm going to have to look it up. He was just on Oprah's podcast, and so I was listening to it, and he was talking a lot about emotional intelligence and the fact that he believes it can always be developed. It's you're born with a certain IQ, but you can develop your emotional intelligence. And he was saying for humans that did not have a solid foundation when they grew up, it's going to be like twice as hard, because if they become aware that they don't have that foundation of which to build off of, they have to go back, rebuild, and then go from there.
Well,
made me think of that.
Here's a great hack for Rainmakers and admin. If your Rainmakers aren't listening, make them listen to this for this hack. If you want to blow up your business in a good way, become self-aware.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Become self-aware, because if you're successful and you're not self-aware, good on you. Yeah. And you aren't anywhere close to the ceiling of achievement.
No.
Because if you become aware, man, your powers are exponential. Chris D'Elia, who's a comedian, on his podcast, he said something that I thought was insightful. And he basically said, he was talking about a comedian, a peer of his, who was not self-aware. And he's like, you cannot be a comedian and not be self-aware.
Yeah.
Because that means you can't read the person in front of you, let alone a room.
Yeah. So interesting. I hadn't thought about that for comedians before.
If you're a comedian and you have to read a room.
Yeah, you better be.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to read the whole room.
Yeah.
And you can't do that if you can't look in the mirror and read the face that's looking at you.
Yep.
How is what we do any different than that?
It's really not.
I have to go into blind rooms, read the room, and come out with applause.
And you'll do it that much better too, because there's some people I've seen that can read other people, but lack self-awareness themselves though too, which again limits their success. So I love that comparison to a comic. I think that's really interesting.
All right. And the last one that I have, and you may have a couple of your own. As we get more successful, the noise gets louder. I learned a lesson in 2013. I was at a table of other mega agents from around the country. Most of these people I didn't know well at all. I didn't know them at all. And in the conversation, I said something that I didn't think about because no one cared. I didn't think anyone cared what I said.
Yeah.
You know. And then in the aftermath of that, someone who was also a master manipulator took that out of context to their benefit and used it to their benefit. Mm-hmm. And I had to own it and deal with it in my own way. And I realized out of that, I learned a lesson. The lesson is no one cared what I was saying when no one was listening. Truth is, people are listening now. Mm-hmm. I reached a level of success where people were listening to what I said. Mm-hmm. And now that lent a whole new sense of responsibility to the things that came out of my mouth, which was very uncomfortable for me because I'm used to being able to say what I want. Yeah. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, my words are bombs. And I'm like, I am throwing these bombs everywhere and it's not helping me. Yeah. And so then as you get more successful, all of a sudden people are listening. Yep. And now they are inquiring. They're asking you questions. They're asking you for God of minutes. And can you help them with this? Can you do that? Mm-hmm. All of a sudden the market center is trying to capitalize on your success as well. Can you be more involved in training? Hey, can you be involved in recruiting? Hey, can you be on the ALC? Mm-hmm. And so as you become more successful and you gain more notoriety, you have more opportunities. Mm-hmm. And some of those are worth exploring. Some of them are not. Mm-hmm. But just realize that if your Rainmaker they're going to get more overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. They're going to have less reserves in the tank. Mm-hmm. They're going to be more impatient. Mm-hmm. Whatever their natural extreme tendencies are, just see them get more extreme. That's what's going to happen.
Well, and what advice do you have? Because there's a girl who just signed up for the retreat today, and her Rainmaker just decided to take on the role of team leader of the office. And I said, oh, this really changes up what you're going to be doing for the team. And she said, yeah, this is a whole new ball game. And now team leader of the office is kind of massive. Like when I think about the possibility of you being an OP or something like that, we've talked about that before. That seems more doable. But from what I know about the team leader position, I'm just like, so we were talking about this earlier, and I think you have great ability to discern what is viable or what's a good decision or a good idea that could add to the business. And then you've been able to help me anyways in picking and choosing what's worth my time, what's not, because I'm very much like, I want to help everybody and I can't. And so what kind of advice do you have for Rainmakers though?
A few things. One, I don't do things I don't want to do. So like if it doesn't pass the litmus test of,
you gotta want to do it.
Do I want to do this? Yeah. Secondly, do I have to partner with someone? Is it going to give me a partner that I like or that I even have control of? If it puts me in partnership with people that I don't even like, I'm not going to do it. I've had partners in business before. I've had to partner with people in areas of my business before that I didn't have control over. Yeah. And it took the joy out of it, took the fun out of it, took the success out of it for me. So I'll bet on myself. And I'll bet on other people that I know and trust and that have proven themselves. Yeah. But I'm not going into business. I'm not taking an opportunity with someone that I've never worked with before. No. Yeah. Or been in partnership with before. Yeah. You and I'd partner on anything. Just about. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you came at me and said, we're going to do this, I'd be like, okay, let's do it. You know? Yeah. I might question you because I think I have good discernment, right? Yeah. And so I need to discern that it makes sense. Yeah. And then there's not a blind spot that I can see. Yeah. But
no, I know what you mean now. That having had a little bit more experience, and I still have a lot more to learn, there are very few people that I would go into business with knowing what could happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And you also, I mean, I don't want to go into business with someone just because I like them as a person. No. I want it to be successful.
Oh, that drives me crazy.
There are a lot of people that do that, yeah.
Real estate.
A lot of people. Yeah.
I mean, I swear to God, it's just like an extroverts convention. And where people are like, it's like...
That's a great way to put it, actually, yeah.
It's an extroverts convention.
If they have one of those.
And it's the first day of Survivor. Where it's like, hey, you look nice and friendly, and you're kind of like me. Do you want to form an alliance? I haven't known you more than 5 seconds. Do you want to form an alliance where we partner and we make it all the way to the end?
There should be a Survivor for real estate, yeah.
Oh, but that's what it's like. It's like these agents in these offices are like, oh, you're fun and you're pretty. Do you want to partner up and be business partners? And I'm like, what are you doing?
That's so true.
How do we get on that? What was the question?
Sure. I forget.
But yeah, these partnerships.
Oh yeah, what's your advice for Rainmakers?
Well, people partner with people, I think partly because of fear, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Let's share the weight of it.
When Dennis and I, who formed Pickett Street, what I'm proud of us for is we never shared commissions. Like I said it from the beginning.
That's right. You just cut out expenses.
I said, hey, we're going to be partners in real estate. I am not sharing my commission.
Yeah.
If I make a commission, it's my commission. If you make a commission, it's your commission. We'll take a percentage from each commission, and that'll pay our bills.
Yeah.
But if I do 10 deals, I do 10 deals, and I get that money. Mm-hmm. I'm not giving, and you do 0? Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. There would be a bloodbath because I can't handle that sense of inequality.
Yeah.
And so I see people do this in the office, and I'm so, like, over it. Mm-hmm. I don't even give them the time of day. Mm-hmm. I don't even talk to them. You're so stupid that you can't be alone for a second and figure out this real estate game, or you're just going to partner with the first breathing pulse that walks by. It's just so obnoxious to me. And I've had opportunity to partner with a lot of big names, and sometimes I wonder if I made a mistake, but at the end of the day I don't think I did, because the reason I do this is because I can't work for other people, and I need the freedom, I need that autonomy to make decisions, good or bad or otherwise.
Yeah, whenever that's come up, I've always been like, I've had this feeling in my stomach like, don't do it, because even I'm now at the point
when we're about to partner with somebody.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that, then you look at how I partner now. And I don't partner.
Not in the same way.
I acquire. Mm-hmm. Like mergers and acquisitions is just acquisitions. Yeah. Like when we we take over a team, I take it over. Mm-hmm. I'm not working with them and meeting with them once a week. Mm-hmm. Or, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. No bueno.
So you said you make sure you want it, and then you went into partner. Anything else for advice for Rainmakers? As far as
new opportunities. What to say yes to and what to say no to. I think one for me is a factor of time. I don't want to work late.
Yeah.
Because I know
thinking about your life and your
my
schedule.
Brain too. I don't want to work late, and I don't want to sacrifice my weekends because that's my family time. I would take a job, or I would take an opportunity that allowed me to travel more. Mm-hmm. So if it affects my interests and allows me to live out my interests. Hell yeah, I'd do that. And then I look for ways for it to make opportunities for those around me. Like if it creates an opportunity for you, I'm more likely to say yes. Or if it creates an opportunity for someone else on the team, I'm more likely to say yes.
Okay.
Other than that, I mean, ALC, I've done a lot.
Quite a few years.
For those that don't know, that's Agent Leadership Council, and it's a board of real estate agents in a given market center who have meetings once a month and other responsibilities, but they contribute to the decision-making process of the office. And I like to be in control, and I like to have my voice be heard, and so for that reason, I did that. OP was and that's basically somebody who is like chairman of the board, someone who keeps the team leader accountable, and had an opportunity to pursue that. And quite honestly, I just wanted to focus on our business. And so, I have a strong sense of responsibility to everybody on the team. And so if anything I think is going to distract me from our core business, I have a really hard time saying yes to that.
Makes sense.
At the same time, I'm not afraid to pivot. Mm-hmm. When I look at stories like, Netflix used to mail DVDs to people.
Yeah, no, we've talked about that a lot. Like, you're very much into the idea and aware of the fact that in order to survive whatever changes happen to real estate or real estate agents in the coming future, we have to be prepared to pivot. And I think you do that really well. And we're really comfortable with the idea of like, hey, we might not always be doing real estate. What if we were a team that was doing, I don't know what, something else?
Well, I'll give you an idea. Like, what do you think has more potential? Being a real estate agent in Bothell, Washington, or being consultants to executives and admin across all industries in the United States?
If I get the answer wrong, do I lose my job? Because I think it's a pretty clear-cut answer.
Yeah.
Clear-cut.
And so that would be my point. Is like, I'm not afraid to pivot. Yeah. I'm not afraid to transition if I see a faster, better-looking horse. Yeah. And the one...
Back to the horse again.
This mangy steed I've been riding is... No, it's not a mangy steed. I love our business. But I've been doing it for 14 years. I've never done anything 14 years. I haven't done anything 4 years. Mm-hmm. Like, this is the longest I've ever done any one thing. Mm-hmm. And it's time to pivot a little bit. Mm-hmm. Mm. Podcasting empire. I nothing is off book for me. Like, I could distill whiskey. I could make wine. Yeah. I could buy a blueberry farm. There's lots of options available to me.
Okay. I had a couple follow-up questions I'd written down. So who do you look to, or who have you looked to for leadership the most in the last 5 years? Who's had an impact on you? Because the last 5 years, a lot has happened. Is there one person, or is there something like, what have you done to get some sort of inspiration from?
I don't know if I have an answer to that. Like, I don't have a Yoda. Yeah. I wrote our current coach, and it's kind of funny to me that I said this, but I guess going back to my Christian upbringing, there was there's different language I could use. I was looking for a mentor. Okay, so Jesus had the 12 disciples, right? He discipled 12 men, and he taught them, and he poured into them, and they worked with him, and they traveled together, right? And then Jesus ascended, died, rose again, ascended into heaven. And then now these 12 men have to carry on the business plan, right? Yeah. And they're called apostles. And so when I thought about what I was trying to do in my life, I was looking for a mentor. I was looking for an apostle. I was looking for somebody in a place of leadership to kind of take me under their wing and steer me in the right direction. Yeah. And I don't think I found it, honestly. I think I had forms of it in like paid therapist, right? Who taught me how to think and how to undo some bad thinking, programming. I had a pastor at the time that I met with on a regular basis who became kind of a father figure. But maybe not all options were open. And then, I feel a little bit like an orphan sometimes. Yeah. I think you know that. And so, because I feel like an orphan and then going through that change in my life where I had to figure out who I was and reinvent myself, that was a very lonely time. And I second guess myself all the time. But I saw fruit in what I was doing, and I've leaned into that. And my grandfather passed away a few years ago. He's the one that got me into real estate. He's probably the biggest mentor that I've had. How did he
get you into real estate?
Well, I had the idea, and I called him up one day, and this is, 15 years ago, and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Because you have to realize that at the time, it was completely insane for me to become a real estate agent.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I was from Montana.
Yeah.
I didn't know anyone out here in Washington State other than real estate agents. Mm-hmm. And I was going to become a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. My sphere of influence were people that didn't want to give me any business. And so when I called him up to talk to him about it, he was an auto body technician. So he painted cars. And he painted Cadillacs specifically. And so he told me a story I didn't know at the time. And he's like, in Billings, Montana, he became the best automobile painter in the area. And so he wanted to work on Cadillacs specifically because that was the best car to have, right? And so then he carved out a niche where the Cadillac owners only wanted him to paint his cars.
Okay.
And so rather than accepting a flat rate, he wanted to be paid a commission of every job he did. Mm-hmm. And he was the only auto body technician that was paid on commission. And because of that, he always had nice cars. Yeah. He had rental homes. He had a vacation house. And so I didn't know all this stuff.
Was your dad's dad or your mom's dad?
My mom's dad. And so then I called him up and I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Am I nuts? And the reason I respected and honored him is because he had investment properties. Mm-hmm. And that amazed me, that he had so much money that he could own investment properties. And so I called him up and I asked him this question. He goes, and he told me that story. And he goes, never hesitate to take a position that allows you to bet on yourself.
Okay.
He goes, do it. Just do it. And I was like, that's what convinced me to get into real estate.
I like that.
And because I think a lot of it didn't make sense. I was a transplant from a different state who didn't know anybody. Mm-hmm. What I did know, and that was what made me think about it in the first place, is that I worked with a lot of real estate agents. I developed marketing plans for them. And I realized most of them sucked at calling people back.
Yeah.
And if I only called half of the people back, I'd be at least half as successful as my top clients.
Yeah.
And so all I really committed myself to was calling people back.
Yeah.
So how's that for a business model? What's your business plan? I'm going to call people back. Good on you.
Call back and follow through.
Yeah.
How about that?
You know what? It's a pretty good business model.
That's awesome. I've never heard that story about your grandfather.
Yeah.
That's a good one. All right, final question.
Dun, dun, dun.
What is one mistake that you witness admin make more frequently for their leaders or around their leaders or whatever? Like, what's a mistake that you see admin make frequently that you think could be easily fixed, or not even easily fixed, just something that you see?
A lack of proactivity.
Okay.
It drives me crazy. I mean, if you want my blood to boil, like, be on Facebook and be on Instagram and have your feet up on your desk or, stuff like that. Like, my blood will go to a boil really, really fast. Mm-hmm. And some of that is necessary in your guys' jobs. So, obviously I don't get upset at that. Mm-hmm. But if something's not getting done that pushes the business forward because you're being lazy or you're doing something personal, what are we doing here? Mm-hmm. And so proactivity is the biggest mistake admin make. Not being proactive, not finding something to do, not finding a way to push the business forward, not finding a way to make your Rainmaker's life easier and better and more streamlined. Mm-hmm. Not doing those things, that's the biggest mistake admin make.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I got.
Well, I'm getting old, so we can't do these long
what time of day were you
form.
Born? Do you know?
I was born around 6:30
p.m.
in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in a snowstorm.
We're close. In a snowstorm?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. God was preparing the world for the storm that was coming.
All right. Well, that was an awesome lesson in Rainmakerism.
I'll also say this. Thank you as my DOO, and thanks to Sarah. Came to the office with balloons tied to my chair and whiskey on my desk.
Yeah, Christina Jenkins put some whiskey there for you, too.
And lunch that I didn't have to pay for.
Heck yeah.
I just want to say hat tip for the birthday.
Yeah, we love to
Appreciate
celebrate.
It.
We do. Mm-hmm.
and we played some sort of meme game.
Yeah. I forget what the game's called, actually, but it's a meme.
Tell people why I got that game.
So if you go to Jesse's profile on Instagram, it's just at Jesse D. Moore, I think. He calls himself a meme poet. And he's always made jokes around memes and all things like that. So this is like like Cards Against Humanity, but memes.
I actually came up with this idea to put meme poet as like a joke.
Yeah.
Right?
But now it's stuck.
Well, because
social
influencers was a thing, and I was like, everyone was like, God, this isn't even a job.
I'm gonna put that on my profile, social influencer.
And then I put meme poet to be cute, and now it's a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Like people actually make money, and lots of money creating memes. Yeah.
Maybe that's a side business we should do.
There's a documentary. I think I've mentioned it before.
Yeah.
American
Somebody else
Meme.
I know has watched it too. Yeah.
You guys should watch it.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
All right. Can't even wait until the next time when we're going to discuss, I don't even know what yet.
Well, we have some great guests coming up.
Actually, the guests are coming up soon.
Susan Scott is coming up.
Holy crap. Yeah. She's soon. She's in the next couple weeks here.
Gary Vaynerchuk's EA is coming up.
Tyler. And then Gary John Bishop.
Gary John Bishop, who has like...
Epicness.
He has like got the name of a American outlaw. I think anytime you have three names and two of them are first names.
I kind of want three names like that.
Gary
Margaret Macaulay
John.
Smith is too, average.
Yeah, Gary John Bishop sounds like a gunslinger.
Yeah, I bet he is. From Scotland.
Scotland.
Yeah, Scottish accent.
I don't know many gunslingers that wear kilts, though.
Yeah. Oh, they're out there.
I don't think
they
so.
They really are.
You don't know anything about the American West and outlaws.
I don't at all, no.
Right. Well, thanks, everybody. Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday to Jesse. Thanks for sharing all of our podcasts, too. And if you haven't found us already, we're now on Facebook under Finally Clicked. And if you take the time to share one of our episodes on social media, I will call you out and thank you. Just so you know, I really appreciate it. It's a message that I think is attracting more and more attention because it's a necessary topic. So thank you, guys.
Peace out.